Okay, this first technique is called wet in wet. It's good for a lot of things, but one thing it's really good for is making clouds and sky in the background. The key on this, because we're on drawing paper, not watercolor paper, is not to get too much water on this paper here. We're going to go pretty sparingly on it. And here's what we're going to do. I'll just experiment on here just to show you a little bit. I'm going to get my blue wet to start with. Get a little blue wet. I don't want it very dark, so I'm just going to bring it up here, get a little up here, add some water to it so it's not too dark. And then I'm going to look on here and go, okay, is it dark enough that it shows up against the paper? Yes, it is. So that's good. So I'll give you a second to get your blue up here. Just make sure it's dark enough that it shows up on your white paper. That's my test sheet that I'm using right now just to check. The trick to making a good sky is making sure that you got enough space between your dark color and the white of your paper. If you get too much blue on your paper, it just turns into a big bluish massive mess. If you leave some space between, it will look more like clouds. So here's what I'm talking about. When we put a little bit of water on our paper, and all I'm doing is putting just a little water, going really fast back and forth. I don't want to soak my paper because I don't want it turning into a big wrinkly potato chip looking thing. Just enough that it's damp. Then I come on here and I get a little bit of blue, and just in the white area, I'm going up and down a little bit, but I'm keeping it horizontal as I move my brush. I'll come down here a little lower, keep it a little bit lower, and then bring some in here from this side where it's wet, and maybe a little bit up in here. Okay, but I'm keeping a lot of space between my lines. Now it's getting a little dry right here, so I got to get some water on there. I don't want any hard edges. So when that's done, if you look at that, it forms kind of a soft edge and kind of a cloudy look to it. The clouds are the white part. The blue part is the blue of the sky. Okay, so it's kind of reverse thinking. Instead of actually drawing clouds or painting clouds, you're painting the background and then the cloud appears. Some things that you need to avoid, though, is if your paper gets too dry and you go like this, okay, now you got a hard edge. You got a hard edge all the way around your cloud instead of a soft edge because you didn't have the paper wet first. Okay, if you started on the wet part, like right down here, and then you got to a part that was dry, a little bit more water on there. It's dried on me quite a bit. Okay, if you start on the wet part, of course it's blurred edges, but then you get out here to the dry part and you got a hard edge again. You want to try to avoid that. We don't want any hard edges on a cloud, and the way that's done is by having the paper at least damp or a little wet underneath. One last little thing to be aware of before we put it on our bird. One last thing to be aware of is if you have your paint too dark and you come on here, your clouds are going to be like crazy dark and it's not going to look good. Okay, you want it on the lighter side of things, not super dark. And you can go darker than this and mess it up. Okay, that's really dark for a sky color. Okay, now that I've said that, we're actually going to paint on the bird. Hopefully you didn't do that. Hopefully that was all on your test paper like I demonstrated. We'll just take a little bit at a time. We're not going to do the entire thing. We're just going to do a little bit around the bird to kind of make it stand out. So I'm going to come right along this edge. One thing about watercolors and water, when we put the water on, the watercolor won't bleed anywhere that there's not water. So if we don't get water inside here, it will stay out of there, and that's what we want it to do. So I'm just getting some clear water in my brush. I'm going to go right along the very edge. I want to be right on the edge of my bird, not a little short of it, or you're going to get a white glow around your bird. Right to the edge. And I'm bringing it over to the right edge. A little bit above that beak. And I'm just going to do this little teeny section for right now. So all I've got is just a little bit of water from basically the top of the beak down here onto the chest. Then I'm just going to bring a little bit of blue, bring it right over to the edge of the bird, and I'll bring it right out to the edge of my paper. And I'm putting that right in the middle of that wet spot right now. That way I know it's going to bleed out above and below and not have any hard edges. Hopefully that makes sense to you. We're going to just take this a little section at a time. Okay, now if I've done it right, my paper should still be wet kind of where the beak is and a little bit above it. This time I'm going to go from the edge of my paper right here. I'm just going to touch a little bit on there. I'm not going to go all the way over to the bird. And I'm just going to stop right there. So this one goes from the bird all the way over. This next one starts on the right edge and goes towards the bird, but I stop. I don't want to bring it all the way over to the edge of the bird. I'm trying to keep things broken up. And I got lots of white between this one, and this one. Lots of white space. It's really important to make sure you don't get too much paint on your paper. So I'll give you a second to shot it with that. It's probably better if I actually bring that down. Is that better for you guys, looking like that? It's better for me anyway. So. The important part is it's a soft edge all the way around. Okay, then I'm going to get a little bit more water. I'm going to go down below what I've already done. I'm going to come down here right along the edge of my bird, keeping the water out of the bird. I don't want it in it. And then pulling it over towards the right edge again. Just enough to get it wet. I'm going to go down just a little further this time so I can do a little bit bigger area. I want to make sure that that is wet in there. If you're not sure, you can take your paper and move it at angles. If it's shiny, it's wet. If it's not shiny, it's not wet. Okay? It's that simple. I'll get a little bit of my blue, make some space, come right at the edge of my bird. I'll bring that out part way. I'm not going to bring it all the way to the edge. Then I'm going to come over here and bring this to the edge on this one. And maybe bring a little dot in there. Down here right below it, I'm going to put just a little bit because I got a good wet spot right there. Kind of come in below what I've already done. Okay. The biggest thing I'm trying to do here is make sure I'm leaving lots of white in between. Lots and lots of white. But that my clouds aren't just as thin as my brush, so they should be whiter than your brushes. Okay. Think in terms of clouds. What do clouds look like, kind of? Okay. If you're coming in here and taking your brush and going like a straight stroke across, and you just press down and go straight, it's not going to look like a cloud. It's going to look like a straight line brush with a fuzzy edge. Brush stroke with a fuzzy edge. And I don't think I'm going to bring the clouds and sky any further down for the moment. I'm going to go work above the head here in just a second. And that'll probably be about all we have time to do today. There's a little bit up in here, and then there'll be time to clean up. Who needs more time with just the area that we've done? Show me if you need time. Okay, I don't see any hands. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn my painting upside down. Okay, just to make it easier, and so my hand is not rubbing over the area that I've already painted, because we don't want to do that. That'd be a disaster. So I've got it turned upside down. Now I'm going to go right along the top edge of my head, being really careful to keep the water out of it. And then I'm going to go all the way over to, this case, it'll be the left side of the paper now because I've turned it upside down. And I'm going to go all the way to the top. So I went just right here to the back of the head, over the top of the head, and then I'm pulling my water from the bird towards the top edge of my paper. I make sure that I don't have any dry spots in there, but I don't want it saturated because I don't want it forming like all kinds of little lakes and puddles. So that's all good and wet now. Now I'll come over here and right off the top of the head, I'm going to come right to the top edge of that head and then a little bit past it and maybe a little bit right there. Not going to bring it all the way to this edge. The next one will start at this edge and go towards the center and then get narrow, and then I'll make it narrow and wide again right here. I'm just creating some little clouds. I can't go slow for you during this time because I'm trying to race against my paper drying. Okay, so once you commit to this, you got to just kind of keep going with it, because if you pause for too long, of course, you're probably discovering that your paper dries really fast, or the water dries really fast. Now I'm going right in the middle and bringing it down a little ways, and going all the way across the wet area I had on there. I'm working this a little more because it's drying just a little dark, so I'm kind of working it before it dries out too much. One thing about watercolors, they usually dry slightly lighter than what you initially put them on. Which is not a bad thing. You just need to be aware of it. So, okay, so when I turn that right side back up, I got some pretty good sized clouds going across there. I don't want them too short. Okay, I'm just trying to break it up like it's a pretty fairly cloudy day. Bringing it right down to the edge of the head. I'm noticing a little white spot there. I didn't want any white between my blue sky and my bird right here. And if you get that much completed on there, we'll call that good for today. Go ahead and clean up. After that, we'll let these dry. Just put them in your cabinet, let them dry for a while. So that way when we come back on Wednesday, we'll finish the sky and we'll jump right into the bird, and it'll be a lot of fun actually. I think you'll really enjoy it when we get into it. At least I hope so.